Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pints of Politics. We got me, your guest host Drew. We got Mike, and we got special guest Adam Schwarze. Adam,
I know. I didn't know it was pints in politics. We would have had a pint.
yeah, it's fair.
It's honey dick right now. If it was actually pints in politics, I would have been prepared. Yeah, you're prepared.
Yeah.
Set up with my 1919 root beer because I don't really drink, but
Well, to be fair, this is our first time meeting up in person in a couple of months because session's not over, because it's going on late. Maybe we can get into that, but mostly I want to focus on our guest, Adam. Adam, you're running for Senate. What is that like? How's that process going for you so far?
It's a heavy lift.
start off a little bit. Just give us a brief background.
Okay.
Tell us about who you are.
So brief background from Bloomington, Minnesota. 9/11 happened during my senior year of high school. Did all 5 phases of Operation Iraqi Freedom as a Marine after enlisting on my 18th birthday. Then I did some time with embassies around the world, mainly focusing in Yerevan, Armenia, which I know Drew's a fan of, getting into that later on. And then Bamako, Mali. From that, I was selected as the top 1% of the enlisted Marine Corps fighting force to get a paid commission program. I came home to the University of Minnesota, where I got an undergrad in political science, but more importantly, kind of a really phase of my life that I missed until I was adopted. I'm literally living proof that if you give life an opportunity, great things can happen. I met my biological siblings because my biological parents later on got married. Later on, I met my biological siblings while I was at the University of Minnesota. I got to be a big brother for a few years. And then in 2012, I commissioned in the Navy as a United States Navy SEAL officer. I did a couple of deployments with the West Coast SEAL team. And then in 2016, I screened for a national entity that does no-fail missions, great power competition, Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, things below the connect threshold, mainly intelligence, priority intelligence requirements, usually subsea, it's naval special warfare undersea is the entity I was doing things at, and that was where I had the honor of serving y'all and everybody else who's an American citizen for about 18 and a half years until my career was ended in 2020 because I did the audacious act of getting groceries at the beginning of COVID. So that's where my military career was ended at 18 and a half years. Then I opened up my aperture to politics. Mike's a respected Minnesota representative. People generally don't care about politics and politicians until something affects them personally. COVID was the first thing when my career was essentially ended by being a model U.S. citizen by all metrics. And then immediately following COVID, we had George Floyd back where in Minnesota. Immediately after my career was ended because of poor COVID leadership, George Floyd, which was egregious leadership on a national level. So any of your listeners who are around the country, you recognize that we essentially let Minneapolis burn to the ground because Governor Walz failed to make a military decision. And he's a National Guard guy, so he just had to say, don't give up the police precinct when burn to the ground. You show a force, show a presence. And I'm not saying for anybody out there I'm not saying we should be harming our citizens. All you had to do is presence of force that would protect it. $500 million worth of property damage in the cities. So that really emboldened my action to serve and my desire to make our cities, our state, and our federal government better. And that's what I'm getting at. I see a lack of leadership in federal government on a bipartisan level. And I think I have the requisite background experience to do something like that.
That's definitely a extensive background.
I was thinking that was a lot of information condensed in a very short.
Yeah, I know how you have to
Sounds
hang it
like
up.
a
Yeah.
prepared political statement if I.
I don't think I've ever said the same statement twice, honestly.
Well, I think it's great to
Well, it's
hear.
good though.
I think it's great to hear from the candidates, and I think this is important because this is part of what we do. We get together, just about every week, go to a bar, we talk to folks, we have good conversations, but we also want to kind of influence culture. That's part of what we're trying to do is have those discussions. And when we get to know candidates, or we get the opportunity for people to understand and hear from their candidates across the state, it is amazing the influence an elected person can have just by their voice. And it's so critical, I think, that we choose our words wisely. Because everything that we say can and will affect someone somewhere. So I think it's absolutely vital that we get to know our candidates and make good, informed decisions. Really appreciate you being on here today. And
Thanks for the opportunity to get my voice out there.
And I gotta touch on something that both of you just mentioned. You mentioned it with Wells, and you mentioned it with just showing up as far as presence. Just having that presence, just even being accessible, makes a big difference in not only electability but also in person's perceived perception of politics in
You
general.
mean putting in the work makes a difference?
Yes, yes, it does.
Showing up, like not staying out for the first 3 weeks of your job.
Right.
I mean, it is fundamental. Like this is something that Marines taught me as an enlisted Marine that has yielded great success as a SEAL, as a mission commander, hopefully in politics. Right time, right place, right gear, right attitude. If you do those things in life, you'll be successful.
Right. But one of the things that kind of intrigued me, you talked about it earlier today. So we're up in Wadena right now. We're at the VFW Republican meeting, having conversations. You got the opportunity to introduce yourself to people up here. Culture. And I think this is why we see so many people that have gotten involved in politics, especially over the last half dozen years, is we see this societal shift, this change in what we expected our leadership to do and to be. And people are saying they're not filling the roles that we expected them to. And I think it's amazing when I see somebody with your background, but then this passion to go from that military training endeavors, and now all of a sudden it's personal. And that's huge because why do we get involved? And then why do you want to put forth the effort? It's to make a change. It's not just a personal thing for a lot of people. It's not, I want to move up the political ladder for the people who are getting involved. It's, we see the societal shift and we say something's not right here. And we want to be a part of making things better. So I loved what you said earlier, but in the state of Minnesota, but you're running federal, how does it represent, or how does a senator, especially in a state that's so purple, so I wouldn't say we're a Democrat state. I would say that we're very close to being red. But how do you become a voice of such a broad electorate in the state? Because it's greater Minnesota, it's metro. It's conservative versus liberal.
Yeah.
How do you do this? How do you bridge that gap? How do you appeal to a society that seems to be so split?
I think the first part of what you were first talking about, Senator, is the lack of authentic politicians these days. And it was all just in Washington or in the state capitol. You didn't have access. There wasn't podcast. There wasn't fights in politics. 10, 15, there wasn't podcasts. You could talk out of both sides of your mouth. You could go vote on the House floor and people even know who you are, what you're voting. Now people are sick of that trash. I think that is something unique to President Trump. Hate him, like him, love him, but he's authentic. And I think that citizens, the grassroots across all spectrums of politics, they want somebody that's authentic. They demand authenticity, and they also demand to know what your true stances are. And with all these, if I came on your podcast and said one thing to you and went on, WCCO and said something different, you guys would have that receipt and be out there in 0.2 seconds. So and I think that's actually one of the good things about technology. We're going to have these honest conversations. You get to both sit down and inspect my core values, my characters, my aspirations as a man, and they're recorded for everybody. So I truly love this opportunity. But I'm going to be authentic, number one. Truly authentic. I think that is a must for all politicians, and running in 2026 is just have authenticity. Something that I think contrasts me to the Democrats right now, who are polling 25% nationally, is I love America. I truly I love America. I'm blessed that I was adopted. I'm not running on that as an issue because federally it doesn't matter in Minnesota. It's 1995. It's in the Minnesota Constitution. But I want to federally support women. I want to support expanding families. We are the party that supports women now. We support women in schools. We support women getting college degrees. Like the Republican Party is now also the party of free speech, which is wild. That Democrats during Vietnam, they were the party of free speech. Now we're the party of anti-wars. We're the party of free speech, and we're the party that supports families. It's crazy, this paradigm shift. But truly, when I'm going to be running, when I run against Peggy Flannery or Angie Craig, I'm running as somebody who is a pragmatic, common sense individual who loves America. And what I really want at the end of the day is if you can't be home, or you can't be home, I want the Minnesotans to trust me with their families. That's how I think about my running as a candidate. It's like, I may not be a Republican. I may have voted for Democrats my whole life. But that guy's authentic and he's pragmatic. And if I'm not home, I want Adam Schwarze trusted with my family. And I don't think the other candidates, I don't think the other side are going to have a candidate like that. I think if you're somebody in Minnetonka and you leave, you think Peggy Flanagan's going to read your children like trans child porn or something like when you come home. They're just not going to trust the other side. And truly, it's like being just a reasonable person who loves America, but pragmatic and common sense driven. It's been my whole life.
Well, who really would have thought 10 or 20 years ago
5 years ago.
that you would have talked about some of these things and thought they were normal?
Yeah.
You know, boys playing in girls' sports. You would have been laughed at.
Taking their scholarships.
Taking scholarships, exactly. But to me, when I see this, it's a lot like the program of the communists. Just say it the way it is. They get rid of the four O's. You attack the family, you attack culture, you know, and you break down the society. And we're going through these stages, and whether it's real or orchestrated, the similarities are definitely there.
Well, I have to say it's orchestrated because you actually see a little bit of an instruction manual all the way back to Socrates and Plato. Because
Men's soccer player.
yeah, thank you.
That's a good cut. Well, I want some fights and beers
Yeah.
after the puck. I want to fights and beers. We need fights and beers, bro.
Yeah, it comes up just about every conversation. I guarantee you.
Yeah, but like one of the things when they were talking about family is that you get rid of the normal family values, and this is like 400 BC, roughly, give or take 50 years. And you replace it with the state, essentially. You have the administrators, and
You give it to bureaucrats.
you give it
That's
to
what the
bureaucrats.
Democrats are trying to do out in our school systems, in our
and then they
families. Yeah.
teach the kids that men and women are the same, except for when they select the two men for rituals like mating, for breeding. Then they would take the kid and have him raised by the state in a very similar way that you see with transgender.
Gotta ask. You mess with Epictetus?
Not yet. He's on my bookshelf right
Oh, you
now.
like Epictetus?
I read a lot. A lot.
He's my go-to.
Okay.
He's one of the grandfathers after Aristotle's Stoicism.
Okay. Yeah, I just bought a bunch of books and
Yeah.
they're sitting on my shelf waiting to be read. And
Okay.
one of them is I got another one by Plato, and I got Saint Augustine,
Oh,
City of God, and that's going to take me probably a year and a half. And then I got
Okay. Oof.
I got halfway through the history of the Russian Revolution.
there.
Trotsky this summer. And yeah, we got to pick something else.
He's a big Richard.
Well, no, I like history.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh, I think we all like it.
I actually got to the point where I was one day. I was sitting reading, and my wife, I just stopped, and the wife was looking at me. And she goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "We are just following the same steps that so many cultures and civilizations have come to eventually." And I said, "This is almost just, not just disappointing. It's disheartening." But there, I get fired up because when I see new people get involved in politics, some of them understand that the cultural decline has such a negative impact on our civilization, and they want to get involved. They might not even be able to put their fingers
Yeah.
on the pulse. But
They don't know what it is.
instinctively,
Yeah.
something is wrong. And they're going, we need to change. They might not be able to tell you how to change it or what the problems are, but something is wrong. So I get excited when new people are saying, we need some change. But I'm ranting and we really want to get to know you better. So tell me, we talked a little bit about society. How, obviously through the process, you're going to have to get the endorsement.
Yep.
And,
Which I'm going for. Just want to be clear.
okay, so this is something in the Republican Party that has been an issue, is that the endorsement.
Yep.
And then we have people that ask for the endorsement and then don't respect it. If they don't get the endorsement, they just go straight to primary. What are your views?
If I can't get the endorsement, especially with the length of runway, and for your viewers who don't know me yet, I've been planning this, preparing for this moment for years until now. I have failed in my mission. I do not deserve to go into the primary. I will not go into the But I say that without confidence I'm going to get the endorsement. So it's very easy for me to say that
Yeah.
because I'm working very hard for the endorsement. And to be very clear, the endorsement for me is not a check in the box. It's not a, hey, I got the grassroots. Good job. Now I cast you all away. For me, the endorsement is because of the work that I'm putting right now to actually build the relationships for a machine that I then scale up for the primary and the general election. So for me, it's again, in military terms, it's a 5-meter target that I want to knock down with precision because then I get to move on to the bigger things. But I can't do those bigger things unless I knock down that 5-meter target. So it truly is critical to not only for that like thing. It's not just check the box. It's for the bigger mission.
Well, and I think
That makes sense.
that probably goes a long ways to a lot of the delegates that are involved.
Oh yeah, especially if they're sacrificing all their time and effort and money. You know, I've been to statewide conventions. I've been to many CD conventions to know that people spend hundreds of dollars to go to their CD convention, spend 6 months to go to these BPOU conventions just to get to a seat at the table, $500 to get in the door of the state convention, and then to have your standard bearer say, "Oh, by the way, I'm not going to represent your standard. I'm going to do my own thing and try to steal it." I think it's a disservice to our party.
Well, and I personally, I look at this and I say, if you ask for something as a candidate, you ask for that endorsement. And if you don't get it, and then you just make the decision to go to primary anyways, well, then you didn't really value the endorsement. And there's a level of dishonesty that really bothers me when we do it. So remember, as a candidate, when I was first asked, will you abide by the endorsement? And I kind of chuckled because I thought, why would I go to primary? If I can't get past the first hurdle,
Yeah.
then I don't deserve to go.
Well, if you can't get the people in the party to like you, how are you supposed to get the people in the district to like you?
The other thing about this, and I think this is huge, is we are at a disadvantage to the Democrats. They can outspend us.
Yeah.
10-1 sometimes. In some of
They
these
do. In
races.
Minnesota statewide elections, it's 10-1, and then they have the media as well, which is a force multiplier.
Right. So when we're primary against our own, every dollar we're spending fighting amongst ourselves is a dollar we're not spending fighting against the Democrats. We are taking our limited resources and we are squandering them in this conflict that we don't need to be fighting with.
Can I acknowledge that statement? So something that you didn't talk about that I think you're hinting at is we are a very fractured MNGOP. We have a very broad political spectrum on our side of the house. And so I want to be very clear. I am going for the endorsement, and my first leadership challenge, which I wholeheartedly look forward to accepting, is getting us all together. We need to put away all our spears. I don't care if you're the most hardened ultra-conservative, or if you're a constitutional conservative like I am, or if you're a she rhino. I don't care. We need to all join and put our spears down and get on the same team. If we don't get on the same team, we're going to squander this historic opportunity we have in Minnesota. We're going to Governor Walz for a third term. We're going to have Peggy Flanagan in the U.S. Senate. That should be unacceptable to everyone. But we have to play team ball if we're going to do that. So my brand is I'm not throwing mud at any other candidate. I'm not throwing mud at any other apparatus within the state level, the state house, or the federal level. I'm building a team. And if the mission is what's important, we all need to get out of this mission.
And we've talked about this as well.
Several times.
Several
Before you do, I just gotta say, I love that you talk to hands on George through. When you said switch your Republicans for that man, I was like, by that?
And if he said ultra conservatives, I think he's saying their name.
Yeah,
But I do consider myself more
we did
constitutional.
miss me, so.
But no, it's very true. And actually, I was thinking about this. We do have different points of view. And in the discussion today, somebody was talking about, I think it was the senator, saying how the Democrats come out and vote wow, status.
And they play good team game.
Well, let's consider this. When you look at what they do, they say that they are the party of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay?
It's not thought.
That's
exactly.
It's not true diversity. You have to be a conservative or a Republican.
Yeah.
Because look at the voting record, even in the House this year. We had many times where 20, 25 members said, we do not like this bill. The Democrats were lockstep.
Yeah.
True diversity is on the conservative
Diversity is
side.
thought. The most important
Diversity of
the most important
One that
matters.
Exactly. Because they are basically told how to vote, and they vote that way. Now, you can't tell me with 67 members in the House on the Democrat side that every one of those districts is exactly the same. It's not. So now they are not representing the people that put them into office because they're voting lockstep.
The good news, though, is that is why Americans' philosophy meets with their party. And I would actually submit that they're in a decile because there's no way out of that. Well, how do you backslide once you're supporting transitioning kids' youths and you all are now for that? That's the movement. And there's a lot of people on the left that say, "Why are you talking about that so much?" Well, it's because every Minnesota is paying tax dollars right now to Governor Walz and Keith Ellison, who are supporting the taking women out of girls' sports. Like if you're paying tax dollars in Minnesota, that issue matters to you. And so every single Democrat in the House and the legislature on their side is for giving girls scholarships to men, and they have a unit thought. Again, that is why we're going to win. That's the silver lining. Is why their party is at 25% polling nationally, and they're all in the same. They're playing team ball. They're all rowing the canoe, but they're rowing it off a dang waterfall, and people realize that now.
Well, I think those are things that we need to point out and show people as well, that if you want true diversity, you cannot be Democrat. Because diversity,
They actually kick you off your team if you try to go against the grain.
that's right. True diversity is diversity. And that is so much more important. But he can't rambling.
I like it. That's good. I mean, sorry.
Good.
Anyway.
I'm listening. Absolutely.
What else? I mean,
Actually, well,
how much time have we got?
yeah, we got a little bit left. So rapid fire. Obviously, not a fan of trans stuff. I have to ask this. I asked Mike when I first met him. Where do you stand on gun laws?
There are 3 hills that I die on: First Amendment rights, Second Amendment rights,
Yeah.
and deficit spending.
Well, so in some states they have like castle doctrine. Minnesota is what? Duty to retreat.
No, that's trash.
Yeah, I get that. Stand your ground.
That's good.
Okay. We're cool with that then.
I had
Because when I first met Mike, when he was running his first time, I came with a moderate question because in my head, like politician, so he gives some safe, squishy answers like, "Where do you stand on castle doctrine?" So he comes back with "stand your ground," and immediately like, "Well, there's my vote."
Okay, so here's the thing with gun laws. The Democrats are very good. We talked about this earlier offline. We talk policies. It's not sexy. It's boring. They talk emotions. They're really good at appealing to people's emotions. Every time there's an unfortunate shooting, or God forbid, a shooting or a terrorist incident, the guns thing comes up. Okay, and then we all freak out. Nothing unfortunately happens, or I'd say fortunately, it depends on how you look at it. But here's the gun laws. Empirically now, what cities in the entire U.S. has the most stringent gun laws? Chicago, New York, D.C., Baltimore. What cities in the United States of America has by far the most gun-attributed deaths? Chicago, Baltimore, New York, D.C. They are the worst. So what does that mean? More gun legislation does not equal less gun violence. Because why? Criminals don't care about laws. So you're doing nothing except pulling guns from law-abiding citizens. It's like crazy talk, but again, it's almost not, they've almost given up on it because again, it's so crazy talk, but they haven't. But again, the common sense says more gun laws do not actually help anything except take guns out of law-abiding citizens' hands. There's no data. And if you're a watcher and you disagree, show me the data. I'm always a follow the actual science guy. If you show me something that is different to my viewpoint, I will always examine it. And if I'm wrong, I will change it.
Those numbers, the statistics, they don't get talked about.
No, we had more people die in Chicago than in my 15 years in Iraq.
Yeah, that's what they call it, Chirac.
Chirac, because we had more people killed in Chicago than Iraq.
And I know there's people that use the numbers, say that more people in the United States are killed in gun violence than, the rest of the world. But you're exactly right. Take those cities out of the equation and we're way down on the list.
Yes, yes. If you take the problem cities that have the highest gun violence and the most gun laws up, then we're actually not that bad.
Exactly.
And then also, by the way, look what happened when New Zealand and Australia pulled their guns from the populace. And then look what happened during COVID.
Yeah, open air prisons. That's what I heard. Okay, and so last topic. So lately, big thing this year, immigration and border security. You're a military man. Where you at with that?
I'm all about open borders.
Okay.
No,
Well, it's been nice talking to you. Well, Rick, this is great.
I think that was actually the biggest driver of the presidential election, is that the Democrats lied to the American people and said, "Oh, the economy is great," and they're like, "I guess maybe it is," and then the Democrats said, "President Biden, he's doing backflips behind the scenes. You just can't see it. We can't keep up with the guy." And the American populace is like, "I guess maybe," but then we had Laken Riley, jogger, get raped and murdered and killed. We have a lovely 14-year-old girl in Texas get drugged from behind a convenience store, raped, murdered, killed by illegal immigrants who were caught like 6 times and deported, but nothing ever happened to them. Americans,
It's the one closest. Bemidji, not that many years ago. There was a young girl up there that was raped by a series of illegals, and that hardly made the news in the state of Minnesota. And yet, we're just supposed to turn a blind eye to this.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the greatest issues of this last election. Americans said, 14 million people, I can have a heart, I can be for immigration reform, which I truly am. I actually am for immigration reform. We need more lawyers, we need to fix the system, we need to make it better. We need to do a data analysis to figure out what are true numbers of people that we can take in this country legally look like. I'm very empathetic to those that fought along my side in Afghanistan and Iraq. Those people fled just like the Hmong did back in Vietnam. We should be accepting of them. But you know, the first thing that you do for all that is you have a dang border, you lock it up, and then you do all those tests to figure out how many people actually have here illegally, and then you can figure out how to bring them in legally. That the first thing is not to open up the border and then have carte blanche access to the United States of America. That's again, the Democrats and Republicans aren't always so different on the outcomes, but we have a process, an executable process, and they just are, Green New Deal with hearts in the skies, with never any plan on how to actually execute a better America.
Yeah, and what you mentioned, they're good on emotion. That's the whole argument. It's
Yeah.
all about feeling.
Yeah.
I think what's really telling is go back and look at presidential debates, campaigns over the last probably 25 years. How many presidents have come and said, we need to fix the immigration issue? Obama, we're a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. Clinton said the same thing.
Excellent.
So all of these presidents on both sides have said, we need to fix this issue. And yet nothing has really happened until Biden opened the floodgates. And now Trump
Unraveled all of Trump's borders on the floodgate.
Right.
The first president actually opened up our borders.
Trump is actually doing less compared to what Obama had done in his first term.
Twitter chief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the media is blowing a gasket saying, hey, oh, this is terrible. Look what he's doing. Compared to Obama.
Yeah.
Put in apples to apples comparison.
If you remember the first Trump administration where they were deporting illegal non-citizens, they were saying you're putting them in prisoners, you're putting them in cages. It was the same exact tactics, techniques, procedures that Obama was doing previously with less people, but under the media was then you're putting kids in prisons,
Yep.
in cages. Just like they said you're whipping the immigrants. Oh, those power two immigration officers when Kamala was the czar of immigration, by the way. Never visited the border, then blasted two of our own first responders who said they were whipping immigrants. That's such a threat.
So you hit on it before, but I think it's just another prime example of the media, the propaganda machine, and how poorly they represent this country, and how slanted that is. And that is it's horrible. It causes more division in our country than bringing people together.
I agree.
So, all right. Anything else?
I think we'll wrap it short there. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you.
I hope so.
I'll definitely be keeping an eye on you. You said open borders. I'm a little nervous about that.
That's going to be totally shocked and utilized by somebody.
Shocked and utilized. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Against Politics. We got Mike again.
Adam Schwarze, and thank you for everybody out there who's as a family member, who's a Gold Star service member. Yesterday being Memorial Day, we all want to pay respects to everybody that kind of lost their service member.
You got any website, social media you want to shout out?
Thank you. Schwarze for Senate, SCHWARZE FOR Senate.com.
That's it? Yeah, Twitter, Facebook?
All that. All social
say?
all social.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Mike, where are we?
Yeah, we are at the VFW in Wadena, Minnesota.
Kind of feels nice being back in person.
Yeah, this is nice.
All right, thank you. God bless.
God bless.